All right, so good evening once again, everyone. Um, so let me just quickly, while we are waiting for others to join, let me just quickly recap some of the topic we treated yesterday. So we actually continue from where we stopped last time. Last time, our topic of discussion was our data inspection techniques. We looked at some functions, so inbuilt function within Python that can actually be used to exploit important information about the data set we are given to analyze as data analysts. I did advise that it is important when you are given data set, you start by understanding the data. And doing that in Python requires the application of some functions. And we looked at those functions. I think if I could just scroll to where we officially started yesterday. I think we started with, we mentioned the shape, where I said the shape is to enable us to know the length and the width of our data set. That is the total numbers of features. Feature in this context means the headings and the entries, which are also known as the records in our data sets. We also talk about using .info. And I said .info gives us a comprehensive analysis about what our data set is made up of. Just like you can see here, this is the name of the data set, and then we concatenated it with the function called .info, which outputted this information about our data sets. So I took my time to explain this particular report, which you should know how to interpret as a data scientist using Python or data analyst. So I said this is telling us that this data is made up of 100 entries. And that is why Python has recognized it as 0 index to 99, which I believe we understand why we have the 0, because the very first item is always positioned at an index of 0, as I have explained before. And then the function also lists out the list of columns or features within the data sets you are exploring its information, and also analyzing the type of data stored across these listed headers. So also I talk about copying or saving your original data. I said the best practice is for you to always keep the raw data. Do not start your analysis on the given raw data, because at some point you might, corrupt it, or something can happen along the line that might lead to falling back to the original data. So that is why I taught us yesterday how you can create a new data frame and then copy the current data using the copy command into the new objects. Now here we learned how we can rename our data features. So should in case there are some features within your data set that have space, or where you use two words and there is space between the two words. I said there is need, because Python do not tolerate space between the headers. So what we did was to adopt another cleaning function called rename, and then we concatenated it with our data set, and then we specify this attribute called columns, which shows that I want to adjust column. And then we pass in the key and the value. And I told us yesterday, this is actually a dictionary, because when we were taught under Python basics, I said dictionary is a multi-structured data type within Python that can hold multiple values in an object or one variable. And I also explained that dictionary comes in pairs. That is, we have the key section, and then we have the value section. So in this case, the whole of this section is 1, it's not 2. So what we did here is that this is the key, which represented the header, and then this is the value that we are modifying. So we repeated it. The only thing we did is to add the underscore. So that is what we did here. And then we outputted, we stored that outcome into what? We actually updated the existing data that was having space between these mentioned headers. And I said it is important you know how to update the current data, or you save the corrected version in another data object. So for us to use the same name that we use here, which means that we updated. So even I want to save this in a new data object, what I will have done is to give a different name here. So that is what we did here. So we call it again, try to confirm if we have actually modified the data. And then when it's outputted, we notice that the headers that we selected and adjusted, they were all affected. Now, another thing we looked at was we read in another data set for a reason. We were about learning how to check for missing value within our data sets. And for that reason, we related with the data set, which I dropped in the group in case you are going through yesterday's video to implement what I am recapping now. The data set, this particular data set, I have dropped it in the group. So this data set, we have where we have a missing value. So we wanted to use it to confirm how to drop those missing value within our data set. So I'm given a data just like this. And after loading it here, I discovered that there are places indicating that no value in the cells. And that is what Python usually translates to NaN, which means not a number. Okay, so Python is saying that what I am having there is not quoted. So it is only number that should not be quoted. So he is saying that this is not a number. Why is it not quoted? So as far we are concerned, we want to recognize it as missing value. So if I open this data set in Excel, these two cells, 1, 2, 3, will be empty. So if the data entry personnel knew that this data will be processed by a data analyst, instead of leaving those cells blank, what he or she would have done is to just put 0 inside, so that when that data is read here, it does not translate to what? Missing value. However, we can correct it here as data analyst without referring the data back to the entry personnel. So that is what led to this. So here we're trying to drop it, all the rows where we have missing value, we want them to be dropped from data. If you check here, this row number 6, number 5, and then row number 2 have been dropped, and this is the outcome. Okay, now because when you call the name of the data set and concatenate just the drop now function without specifying as is equals to 1, it means you want to drop along the rows. And that was what happened here. Then here, once you add the as-is equals to 1, you are dropping the entire column. So if you check here now, we do no longer have each and the other column where we have each and follower, where we have missing value. So we ended up saying that it is not professional that you drop everything, because there are some value there that could be needed in your analysis. So you doing away with everything, your analysis will definitely be inaccurate, and that will lead to misleading statistics, which is not healthy for this practice. So we said that instead of doing that, let's use a function called isNA to check if there are missing value. And then when we ran the function, it outputted Boolean values. And Boolean values can either be true or false. So wherever we see false, it means Python is telling you and I that no, we don't have missing value here. So where you have true, then it shows that you have a missing value. Now, but we concluded that if we are given a large data set like this, where you have some record, wraps under, you cannot actually conclude as a data analyst that there is no missing value. Because what if you are able to look from 0 index to 4 and 95 to 99? So it's not enough for you to conclude. What happened to record in between 4 to 94? Do you know whether you have missing value? So for that reason, Anna said that we should apply a logic to call out only the missing value. So if we run that function and it output any record, it shows that what? That record has a cell without value. So we related it with this data that we have confirmed that we have missing value, and then we added .any, and then we added what? As is equals to 1, and that's brought out this, showing that from this whole data, there are approximately 1, 2, 3, 4 rows where there are missing value. As we can confirm here, if you check row number 2, we have missing value. That is why it calls it out. If you check row 3, we also have missing value. If you check row 5, we also have missing value. And then if you check row 6, we have missing value as well. Please, just a minute. So what we did here, we related the same function to that large data set, and we got just only the headers, which simply mean that, which are advised that is healthy, that you run it on any data set you want to analyze. If it does not return any record, if you return only the header, is a confirmation that you do not have missing value within that data. So that settled the issue. Then here we try, what about in a situation like I just advised now, where you don't want to delete the entire row because there are some valid values that will be needed in the course of your analysis. So how do you, instead of deleting, I advise that you replace them. Instead of deleting, you replace them with a constant value that is equivalent to 0 or nothing. Okay, since the data entry personnel left those cells blank, then all you need to do is for you to substitute them with 0. And that was what we did here, using another cleaning function called FINA, and then we supply 0. So anywhere you have missing value initially has now been replaced with 0. Now, I also explained if it happened to be a string means text, whereby maybe someone's name was actually omitted. Okay, so it means that within the whole data set, you want to, impute the person's name. So that is going to be string. And because it's a string, all you need is just to quote it. If somebody should still help me to remind them in the group one more time.
that we have started. Now, so the next thing we did was to, there was a question that arose from this whole exercise. I think it was from Dr. Uzoma Valentine, where he asks that supposing under this column, let me use this, under this column H, we don't want zero to be zero to replace the H. Let's say we want 1 or the NaN. In other words, all the missing value under H should have a different value for replacing them, and all the missing values under followers should have a different number or value to replace them. So now to solve that, so what I tried doing before is if I want to, I selected, which is part of the selection method we are going to learn in today's section. So we selected the age, and then which shows that in this case, we are communicating with the only age header, and we are passing in 50. Now, so now the next thing we did, so we're looking at it actually. So I told them that going to that extent is actually beyond what we should learn under data analysis. That is actually a question data science or machine learning should answer. But because he has asked, I promise that I'm going to come up with the solution on how to go about it. So now this is the solution. Now what you can see here, let me make myself active. So what you can see here, if I could remove this comment so that we can have the live code. Now, here, this CU is the name of this data set, where under H, I want to fill with 0, and then probably under follower, I want to fill with 40. So which means that now you are not just filling, you are filling and updating it in the data, in the original data set. That is exactly what we are doing. That is why the syntax is like this. So what we are saying here is that from CU data frame, select H, then equal it. So this is the original age in the data set, and then this is the age you are updating. So you are saying that whatever update is going to happen here should also be equal to the age in the original data set. And that is why after the equal sign, we call the name of the data set again, and then we selected the age, then we added the function to substitute the 0. So if you run this particular cell, you see that what? It affected only. You can still have the NaN under what? Followers. Unlike when we did it for the first time that all the NaN changed. But now you have only the what? The missing value under age replaced with 0. Now, if you now run it, you can't do 2 of them at the same time. So all you need to do is to construct the function separately, and it will also update. So this is for follower, just like I just explained now. So if I run this particular set, it will output the entire data set and also change all the NaN under followers to different what value. So I hope, Mr. Valentine, I have answered the question you asked yesterday before we quickly go into today's assignment. So indirectly, I have touched almost everything we did. So Mrs. Franca is the reason why I have to run through everything again, because she's a consistent student and she missed that class. So I need to do that to encourage her. But that is not to say that she should go on holiday again. Please, is that clear?
Thank you. No, it wasn't holidays at all. So.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Mr. Dr. Uzoma, please I hope you are clear with the question you asked yesterday. So if that is clear, then we can.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. So we will just continue. I gave an assignment yesterday, and it was a mandatory assignment. Do we have anybody who have done it to share your screen, particularly those that were in that class? Let me just, I think those of you that were in that class, Mr. Vitri joined late, so I wouldn't know if he attempted the assignment, but I should be sure that Mr. Uzoma should have done the assignment. Please, sir, did you attempt the assignment, please? So it appears nobody did the assignment, and I guess is the reason why some of them did not show up. Because I said, if you did not do the assignment, I'm not going to teach today. Please, I want to advise again. You can't learn program like this and you are not practicing. It's not healthy. It is not. Just imagine the huge amount of money we paid to learn this and the time we are sacrificing. It doesn't speak well that we are just teaching and some of us are not implementing. It's not good at all. It's not healthy. So just because we have missed some couple of classes, I am going to still pardon us so that we can move forward. But definitely on Saturday, this coming Saturday, there's not going to be class because I'll be organizing this training. And I think I've also dropped it in the group. So if you have anyone that you feel that have not ventured into technology that need to start from the very beginning, they are the best candidates to join this section. And perhaps you yourself, you job the protocol, because I understand that some of us job the protocol. We did not finish from the computer primary school before we jumped into the university aspects. So you can still be in this class for you to be able to get some of the foundation corrected, because one way or the other, they affect us, but many of us do not know. So our Saturday, there's not going to be class. So our class will resume on Sunday. So that's the reason why I don't want to insist on the assignment. So please, the one I am going to teach tonight and the one I gave us yesterday, unfailingly, every one of us should make it available on Sunday. Please, I am begging. All right, so now let's go back to the class. So today we are actually looking at data selection techniques. So these techniques are very, very important. We understand them as data analysts using Python. Okay, because by the time we start the analysis, I am very sure that I will be able to step into some of the basic analysis after this topic. Now, what do we mean by data selection? To select data means that from the entire data frame, for one reason or the other, you want to pull out one section. A practical example, looking at this data set, as a data analyst, there might be some reasons due to the analysis questions you want to attend to. There might be a reason of pulling out only what? The name attributes, values, storing it in a different objects or different data frame. Then there might be need of pulling out income, also storing it in a different object. And then at the end of the day, you can be asked to what? To concatenate them to form the sub data you want to analyze. So which means that I can be given this data and consider that there is no need for me to work with age. There is no need for me to work with followers. In fact, there is none of my analysis question that requires sign-up dates, discounts, and education level. So why should I have them in the data set? If after some consideration, I find out that they have no link, I emphasize, they have no connection with the name and the what? The income. In some cases, but not in Python. In Excel, it is possible that the value here must have involved multiplying the value in another feature by another feature. So which means that once you remove a particular feature value, it affects the value in another feature. In that case, you may need to retain everything. But as far as Python is concerned, that has nothing to do here. So I can actually select only the age. So that is exactly what we are talking about. So how do I do that? Since it's part of what is usually involved when analyzing data with Python. So the first syntax here is how to select one header from data frame. How to select one header from data frame. So when I say one header, I am talking about, in this case, let me use this. Let me use comment. How to select only one header or feature from data frame. From data frame. So what is the task here? So what I'm going to do in order to help us understand these techniques faster, I am going to be communicating them like a task given to us. I'm going to be citing some possible scenarios where there will be need for what I'm about to teach us. So that is how I'm going to put them. So what is a task? So the task here, the task is, so I'm using this particular data set now. So I can refer to this data set as sales inventory. So I will say from, so I'm using the name of that data set, which is what? CU, from CU data frame. Select age. Select age values. Select age value and store. So two different tasks at the same time given to me as a data analyst, and store them in a different data objects. Okay. Now the syntax to achieve this, the syntax, but before I continue, let me quickly add this and then move it up just to highlight the main topic, which is data selection techniques in Python. So let me convert it to a plain text. So I come here and select what? Markdown, and then Shift and Enter twice. Okay, so the syntax is you are going to call the name of the data set, then you concatenate the name of the header. Now, I want to draw our attention here. This first syntax I want to use can only be applicable where you have just one word describing your header, like name, like age, follower. But in the case of where you have two or more words describing your header, you cannot use the method. So I'm going to show us the two different ways. So the first method I'm showing us now is if it is one header description, you can use this syntax to select it. So let's say syntax for one header description. One header description. So the syntax will be the name of the data set, which in this case is CU. So I'll just type CU. But remember, okay, let's go this way first. The name of the data set concatenates the header. Now, to avoid typographical error, you can actually copy it. So just highlight only that header, Control C, and then go back to where you are writing your function, Control V. And then if you run it, automatically it pulls out only the values under what? That are column. Okay? Now, but what the tag says is that one is to pull them out, another thing is to store them in a different what? Data object, which means all I need to do so that in the future I can reference it, because right now it's just the display red. You can no longer what? Make reference to it as you continue with your analysis. So I want to quickly take the whole of this value and store it. I can say, okay, CU underscore subsets equals to. So which means that the current information display should be stored inside what? This. So if I run this, now for me to see the value, to view the results or the values, I have to call the subset. Now, there was a technique that I explained to us the other time, or in one of the classes. I said where the name of your data object is long, like instead of me typing CU underscore subset, which is considered to be a kind of wasting of time. Now, Python have already recognized it as a keyword, which means that it's already captured in Python memory. So all I need to do now is just to type the keyword, let's say the first two letters, and then hit the tab button on your keyboard. And then it will bring out what? The list of keyword with the keyword you have typed. So unfortunately, I can say, the one I'm looking for. So I can just press enter and then execute. So you can see that we have the values extracted from the entire data set and stored in another data object. So that is the first type of selection for only one header. Now, before I show us how to select multiple headers, let's look at how to select headers with multiple words as description, like sign up date. So if I'm going to use this, let me use comment. So this is how to select headers with two or more. Let me use this descriptions. So for me to achieve this, you are going to use square bracket. Use square bracket to achieve this. To select the string header. So my syntax is going to be the name of that data set again, CU, then square bracket like this. And then because the header is a string, since we are not using the period method, so we have to what? Quote it. Then you can now copy the header. Control C, and then come back inside your string, Control V. And then if you run it, it will pull out what? All the value. Now let's try and see the sensitivity of Python. Let's see whether if I decide to call it just like the way I called the first one, just this. You see what is happening here? This one is showing a different color from this. So if you run it, you are going to get error saying what? Invalid syntax. So that is why all you need to do is just what? To acknowledge it as a string. Okay? So once you acknowledge it as a string, then it's going to work. So I believe you get that. Any question first, please? Let me confirm if you are following. Please, let me get a response from at least one person if you are following. Dr. Uzoma and Mrs. Franca, please. Are we following?
Please, if you can recap this last.
The last one here, right? Please, let's pay attention. Are you talking about this?
Yeah.
Now, what we did here is that we are trying to apply the technique, which is how to select one header from data frame. And I've explained two different ways that can be achieved. And I said in a situation where the header you want to pull out its values happen to be just one word description, you do not need to use square brackets. But even though you use square brackets, it's going to work. So you can simply use this syntax to achieve that. You can use this syntax to achieve that. That is where you just type the name of the data set and then dot what? The header description itself. And then what we store the outputted value in another data object. That is what came about this. So we do not want to just display the value. We want to store the value in case we want to use the values as we proceed with our analysis. And then here, I am saying that you cannot use that same logic where you just call the name of the data set and then just put the dot and then the header, where the header has multiple words as its description like this, side, up, date. You have to what? Use square bracket. And then because the description is a string, that is the reason why we have to put it in the string quotes. Is that clear now? I hope that is clear, man.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So now, so that is for that. Like I just said now, so if I decide to say CU, and then I use the square bracket, and then I add my string, and then type H, is still going to work. So which means that the square bracket can fit into the scenario where you have one header and also, one word as your header. It can also fit into where you have header as multiple words. But the concatenation can only work where you have one header. Now, let's quickly look at what about if I want to select more than one header values from a given data set. For example, we are asked to call name, pull out name, age, and follower. So we want to pull out these three headers value and recognize that as a different data set. Or we want to call out name, age, follower down to what? Income, and recognize that as a different data set. So that is the next type of selection we want to do. So we says what? How to select header with what? 2 words. That is the one I have explained. And then this one I want to talk about now. It's not in the slide, but I feel you should know it. So let me use comment to explain that as well. So how to select multiple headers values from a given data set. From a given data set. So the syntax is going to be the name of the data set, CU, then square bracket, another square bracket. That is the difference between the first one. So where you are selecting only one header, you only need one square bracket. Where you want to select as many as possible, then you need to nest the least square bracket. And then you will now call the header as string, separating them with a comma. So which means that I will say the first one I want to call is name. So I'm trying to copy. Make sure that you follow the case in case you are not copying and pasting. Then while you are still inside the inner square bracket, you put a comma. You put a comma, and then the same thing. Ctrl C. You paste. So that is how you keep listing all the headers you want to pull out from the data set. So let's assume I'm working with just 3. Ctrl C. So once you are done highlighting them, and then you execute. So you can see that what? I've been able to call out only those 3 headers value. And my intention as a data analyst is that this is going to form a different data set that I want to analyze. So in other words, I have considered these 3 headers as the headers that are valid due to the analysis I want to perform. So this will enable me to narrow on this information rather than having the whole data set that will end up distracting me when I'm trying to implement my analysis concept. Now, but this is just a display result. So you have to take the whole of this and store it in another data object. So for you to do that, you just quickly save it. Let's say this is another CU underscore subset 2 equals to. So if I save it now I have it there. Now for me to see the value, I will just type the first 2 letters and then hit the tab button on my keyboard to display all the keyword with the key what I have typed. So from here, I'll search for the one I want, which is this, and then run. So which means that at the moment, I have acknowledged this in a valid storage. Okay, so which I can perform all my analysis on. Is that clear, please? Let me also get a response before I proceed. Is that clear, please?
Yes, it's clear.
All right. All right. So, Dr. Uzoma, I hope it's clear.
Yes, I'm with you. Thank you.
All right. All right. So, I think these are the basic selection method or techniques that we should know at this point. Other ones will be considered when we start analysis properly. So like I said, I still want to dive into analysis proper. So everything we have been learning since, remember that we started with understanding Python fundamentals. That is the core language itself. And then we advanced to learning how to create working environments, setting up an interface within Jupyter Notebook where we can, load in our libraries that offers us different functions, and then eventually loaded in our data set. Then after that, we now looked at how do we inspect the data, how do we find out what do we have in the data set that we are given to analyze, since we are not the one that computed it. That was what led to, the explanation of all those various techniques. And then after that, we now advance to the topic I just ended now, which is knowing some techniques on how you can select your data. So now that we have all these skills, now we are fully ready for analysis. And then analysis in Python is broken into 3 aspects so that you know why I am going this way. So everything we are learning since is just preparing us for the analysis, so that when you are performing analysis, when you have some issues, you will be able to attend to them. Now, data analysis or the analysis in Python can be grouped into 3 aspects, and I'm going to start with one of them tonight. The first type of analysis is exploratory analysis. Exploratory analysis. So what do we mean by exploratory analysis? Exploratory analysis, all the way from Excel. If you remember then, let me take us there a little. When we started this program, I told us that there are about 4 types of analysis. Every data analyst should at least know the first 3 or 2. The first one is descriptive analysis. Under descriptive analysis, I said this is where you deploy data mining techniques in order to derive insights from the data set you are given that could influence smart decision making. And I ended up saying that anytime you perform descriptive analysis, there is always a question that it poses. And the question is, what happened? So which means that there is going to be a kind of comparison between one variable and another variable. And the outcome is going to say one of them is actually performing better. So as a data analyst, you do not stop there. You need to be able to explain to the organization you are analyzing that data for, why from your study, from your analysis, why is product A doing better than what product B? Is part of your responsibility as a data analyst. Why do you have to help them to figure that out? You have to help them to figure that out because that is what will determine their investment direction. That is what will guide them in investing on different products. So now your insights must have informed them that this product is doing better because of this, because of that. And then if they have plan of spreading their entire capital on all the products equally, now your advice will now what? Reshape their decision. And that is why we exist. That is why we exist. That is why we are the best. We are the best candidates to be employed in a company policy making team. We are the best candidate to be employed in the admin departments. The drivers of an organization should be made up of data analysts. Okay, now what we are saying is that looking at the name, exploratory, that is what you are exploring insights, and that involves deploying some functions and some techniques within Python to get all the necessary information you need for you. So you are not going to look at the data sets and start prophesying and say, this data set, okay, this, no. You should have knowledge of the functions that can help you to get the desired information that will be presented in your executive reports. So I'm going to look at that first. That is one type of analysis we are going to engage in. The second type of analysis we are going to engage in is what I call filtering. That is filtering analysis. This one is more of, selecting. That is where we are going to be using those selection techniques, where you can be given entire data sets just like this, and then somebody can say, okay, from this data set, I want you to display only record equals to a particular name. Let's say what? Area. That is filtering what? Analysis. Or I want you to display only gross, only income relating to a particular what? Specification. That is selection. You are not summing, you are not dividing, you are not adding. That is for aggregate analysis. Now we have the last one. The last analysis is where we are going to learn how to visualize our outcome in order for us to be able to identify trend easily, pattern easily, and outliers or correlation between the outcome of our analysis. That will now involve graph in Python. Okay, so now I am starting with the first type of analysis, which is analysis with what? Aggregate function. So let me reframe it as aggregate analysis in Python. So let's quickly look at some of them. Aggregate analysis in Python. So I will not be able to finish them because of time. So I will continue from where I stopped next week or this week, let's say next week, Sunday. So introduction to Python aggregates analysis. So let me also mark it down. Okay. So let me call out the slide where I have this. All right. Now, let's start with the definition. What do we mean by aggregation? When you use the word aggregating values or numbers within a given data set, what are you actually talking about? So data aggregation is often used to provide statistical analysis. So all these analysis we are going to engage in, they falls under what? Statistics. Statistical analysis for groups of people and to create useful summary data for business what? Analysis. So most of these, if not all, they are used when you are performing what? Business what? Analysis. So we are starting with, so like I further explained here, that aggregation is often done on a large scale, where you have a large data set, you have a lot of numbers. Maybe they are just 2 or 3, you can just say, okay, I can punch calculator. But now we're talking about where the data is large and you want to what? Sum up the value through software tools known as what? Data what? Aggregators. But in this case, we are using Python functions. So we're going to start with the concept of summation. So when a large number of data are given to us or to you, and sometimes you sum total of values or sum total of value is required, definitely you are going to require what? This technique, just like the data set I have here. If I am asked to sum up everything, let me just work with the CU direct. Let's say I'm asked to sum up all the values I have under what? Income. So I will definitely need the summation function. So let's start with the first task, where I'll be applying the sum function as the first Python aggregate function. And here we are going to be taxing ourselves so that we understand how it will, be involved when you are performing or when you are working. So let's assume that though I'm working with different data sets, but I'm going to relate it with the data sets we are using right now. Well, let's assume that we have a data set where total is a header, just like the way we have the income, and there are values under it. And then we are asked, that total is referred to as where the revenue are tabulated. And we are asked to get the total of all the values. So this is going to be the syntax. So the syntax, now you can see that selection technique that I just explained is going to what? Apply here now. Because what I'm doing here, I am selecting that's from DA. DA is the name of my data set, just like the way I have CU in the current data set I'm working with. So I am saying that from DA, from CU or from DA, pull out or select what? Total. That is, I'm not interested in adding other column value. I am specific about the values I want to sum up. And then concatenate the function outside the square bracket. Simple as that. So if I go back to my data set and carve an analysis question that will require application of that. So let's say here, application of dot sum function. So what is the task? The task is from the above data frame, whose name is CU, analyze the sum total of income generated. So this is analysis question before us. Now, if you look at this question did not say this is the value that are involved. This question did not say that you should add, want to get the total of a particular name. Let's say this name area is repeated. And we want to get the sum of only what? Income from area. That is not what the question says. The question simply says what? All. We'll get to where we'll answer such conditional question. But what we are dealing with right now is what? Where you are adding everything. That is when this function or syntax should be adopted. So now the syntax is going to be, so the syntax will simply be the name of the data set, which is CU, then select, then the header involved. So in this case, I am capturing the income, Control C, and then paste it here. Then you come outside and concatenate by putting the period. Okay? Concatenate the sum function, and then in the parenthesis brackets, you are not going to add anything. Now you will run it. So what happens here is that it displayed all the values instead of giving me the total. The reason is because of this now $sign attached. So at your own level as a data analyst using Python, not machine learning, what you do is that you take this data to Excel and what? Remove this. There is a logic where you can actually what? Remove this or change the data type to integer. Now, what is happening here is that Python is not seeing this as integer, as number, because this function sum can only add number. So this value, though they look like number, but they are not number. How do I know? If I do cu.info, it's part of what we have learned, .info, you will see that let's trace the income. What is written there is not int or integer, is what? Object. And object means what? Equivalent to string. So the function cannot add string. That is the complaint you are getting. That is the complaint you are getting. So this is where, if possible, you learn Python beyond data analysis. If you learn into machine learning, you have what we call unsupervised learning, which is an aspect of machine learning that is dedicated for just cleaning data. So that is where you have deeper knowledge on how to clean data. Now, for you to know that is the error, now here, under age, let's find out what the age values are. Let's apply it on age. For example, come here and say what? Age. Perfect. You can see it sees that as what? Number. So now I'm going to work with a different data set so that it can make sense. Let's work with the data one. Let me call out data one. I know I have data frame stored as data one. Okay, so this is another sales inventory, the Amazon data. Thank God that we have modified the header. So I'm going to look for where I modify the header. Let me see it. Okay. So here I have modified total revenue, and I've also modified total profit. So I'm going to sum up good. So I've added underscore. So now we're going to change our task. So I'm going to be working with this data. Our task now will now be, the company wants us to analyze the total profit generated from all the country or from all the items sold. So I'm changing the task. So it's going to be analyze the total profits from all the country. So we are using the Amazon data for those of you that have the data. All right. So the center, I already know the name of the data set, which was data one. So I'm going to say data one. From data one, select, and then let me quickly extract the header, Control C, and then come back here, acknowledge it as a string, then concatenate the sum function, and then run it. So this is the answer. So this is about 40, this is about 41, 2, 3, comma, 1, 2, 3. This is about 44 million plus profit realized. Now, you have to store this in a valid data set, because don't forget that at the end of your analysis, you are going to come up with executive reports. So whatever output you are getting, you need to be describing it. So this should not just be a display value. It should be a store value. So I will now come here and name it what? Total underscore profits underscore for all country. So if I run it now it's talking about what? Expected index. Python is not friendly with index. Index means what? Space here. So we left space. So this is the reason. So you run it again, you get your answer. So the answer is stored in total profits. So let me check what the error is now. The name total profit for all is not defined. Yeah, because we have not added equals to here. Because what we are doing is that what the whole of the answer that was outputted here should be taken and stored inside what? This. So I will run it again, and then for me to see my result, to see my out or results, so I'll simply call what? That total. So you can see this is where you actually need that technique that I showed us the other time. You can see how long the name is. So imagine you trying to type total profits underscore and all of that. So just simply type the first two letter, let's say TO, then hit the tab button on your keyboard and then press enter after selecting the name, and then you run it. So what I've done now is that I have stored this outcome in a variable or object. So later on I can come back, or in case because the question can change. Let me explain this to you. Sometimes this could just be the main question. There could be sub-question. Now the sub-question is this. Maybe the main question is that this could just be the process of arriving at the final answer. So the main question can be that the company wants to know the difference between the total profit and the total revenue. So what you did now as a data analyst is to first of all what? Get the total profit stored in a valid object, and then you do the same for total revenue. Then you now subtract the what? The outcome. So let's quickly do that. So now I'm doing that for same for gross, that is for sum of total revenue. Sum of total revenue. So I'm going to call the name of the data set. In fact, let me just save it at once to avoid outputting it and then thinking of what? Storing it. So I will just say what? Total revenue. Total revenue is equals to data one. From data one, select string, go back there and copy. Always copy. Don't try writing because you might make mistake of typing error. Now, from here, also sum the values. Select all those values and then also what? Sum them up. Perfect. Now, if I want to see it, I will just type TO tab. I have it here. If I run it, I have the answer. Okay. Now, the main question is, what is the differences? What is the differences? That is the question. So now, since you store them in a valid data object, you will now say total tab to call that one out, then minus. Now remember that you are also expected to store this result in another what? Container. So before that, I will say what? Differences is equals to, then that other total tab, this. And then if I run it, I get the answer stored in what? Difference. So now, if I want to see it, I will just come here and just type what? Difference. So this is the answer, negative value, which shows that what? The value for total profit, which shows that you are subtracting a higher value from a lower value. That is what it means. That's why we are having this negative answer. So let me see if this comes first and see if the result is going to change. So if I decide to go with the revenue first, let's okay, so I have what? Positive what? Value. I hope we are following. Is it clear, please? Let me get a response from you guys.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, so that is the summation. So you can see how I logically apply the sum. So let's go back to the slide and take one more. I don't want to really go too much on this. Now, the next one is average. Average. Average means the mean. In Python, there is no inbuilt function called average. So we represent that with what? Mean in Python. So of a data set is found by adding all the numbers in the data set, then dividing by the numbers of values in the set. So the difference between this and the one we just concluded now is that the one we just did now, we add everything. But this one, we add everything and divide it by the numbers of entries, just like the way we were taught from secondary school. So this is a scenario where we are applying it, and this is going to be the last one, and then we end the section if there's no question. So average question, what is the average of total? So let's say we are working with the same question, but this time around, we are looking at the average aspect of it. So application of average, which is represented with what? Dot mean in data analysis with Python. So what is the task? So the task here is, what is total average or mean of revenue? So the syntax is going to be, so the syntax will simply be, remember, I'll say average AV as the name of the data frame where the answer will be stored. Then from the data, which is what? Data 1, select, copy the header you are dealing with, which is total revenue. Control C. So whenever you experience this kind of timeout of your cell, what you do, just go up and click on one cell and then go back and click. Then concatenate mean. That is the answer. Then if you want to see it, you just call what? AV. Then you get the answer. So it can also go complex. Somebody can want you to, get the total average of one column, then subtract it or add it or multiply it with another value, just like what we did here. So any question, please? Questions? Do we have any question? I want to stop here so that you can go and, apply what we did yesterday, including different analysis with what we have learned, particularly in this aggregate section. So get rich data set, assume different analysis question, then just make sure that you are able to apply the sum, the average function in different ways, answering analysis question. Any question, please? Do we have questions?
No, sir, for now.
All right.
Though there was a time I was logged out, but this thing was, I had to log that out. I omitted those parts, but there's no change. I will probably use the video to go through those ones.
Yeah. All right. All right. Mrs. Franca and Mr. Uzoma, please. Hope we are good to go. Do we have any question?
We are good to go. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. So please, you guys should encourage me by attempting all the assignments given, please. Thank you. I'll see you next week.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.